Hey everyone, Graham here from therecordingrevolution.com. I hope you are having an excellent day. I want to do a quick product review for you today on the Project Studio plugin bundle from McDSP. This is a plugin bundle that unfortunately is only in the RTAS plugin format, which is a Pro Tools format. So for Pro Tools users, this specific bundle is available to you, but non-Pro Tools users, all the plugins in this bundle are available in their full versions in audio units. So you can use McDSP plugins if you're not a Pro Tools user. That wasn't always the case. But this bundle I'm looking at in particular is the Project Studio bundle. And it is basically, Colin McDowell took 5 of their more popular plugins and made lighter versions of them, or stripped down versions with fewer features. And I want to highlight those really quickly because I've had these for many years. I bought this bundle like 7 years ago, and I used to use them, and then I got away from using them, and I got back into them last month. And I did a video tutorial recently, used some of them, and people asked me, hey, could you review them? And I've been mixing my band's most recent record in particular with a lot of these plugins. So let me just highlight what they are and how awesome they are, because this bundle is like $79 and you get 5 amazing plugins. It's way too cheap in my mind, and they're very usable plugins. So the first one that I want to point out is the Analogue Channel, AC2. This is an awesome plugin, and it's basically a tape machine emulator. So you've seen me do a review on maybe Slate Digital's virtual tape machines, which is an awesome tape machine plugin as well. This is a similar concept, and it's been around for a long time. So Analogue Channel in its full version has sort of a analog preamp section, more of like mimicking the circuitry of analog gear, and that's AC1. AC2 is the second part of that bundle, and it's the tape machines emulation, so actually going to tape, and that's what you get with Analogue Channel LE. And so you don't get all the features, you can't tweak the bias or any of those things like you would in the full version, but for someone like me who just wants to throw in a plugin, dial in some sound, maybe change the tape model and go, it's perfect. So it's going to give you that warmth and fatness that tape saturation does. Here's a little bit of a mix with it on the mix bus, and then I'll bypass it. You can hear it disappear.
Lift up your hands, you gates, and be lifted up, you ancient outdoors, as you wait for the King of Glory's come, the King of Glory reign. Lift up your hands, you gates, and be lifted up, you ancient.
Right, that warmth in the bottom end, the low mids comes in. It's a great tape saturation plugin. The bundle, if you're a Pro Tools user, $79 just for this, I think would be worth it. Throw it on your mix bus to get a little bit of warmth, mix through it. It's really great. You can use it, of course, just on your drums bus or on anything. So Analogue Channel 2 is really simple. It gives you some saturation, and you can dial in the input and output so that you can gain match and tailor it to taste. The other big one that I love is Compressor Bank. So this is one of their first plugins ever, but it's basically a compressor that models a bunch of other compressors. And so the version you get is the CB4, and literally this plugin is ridiculous because they've modeled a bunch of popular compressors, and the visual will change based on those compressors. So for instance, on this track, I'm using it as an LA2A. All right, so if you don't have an LA2A hardware or plugin, you could use Compressor Bank and model it, and the knobs change, the feature set changes, and the sound changes. So this is, I've got it on my vocal here. Take a listen to it with and without.
Lift up your hands, O you gates, and be lifted up, you ancient of doors, as you wait.
Right, so it's a nice optical compressor, and it just is a very smooth compressor, and it pushes your vocal up a little bit in the mix. I love the LA2A. I have the Waves LA2A, and honestly, I auditioned both that and the Compressor Bank preset for the LA2A, and I could get them to sound just the same in my mind. So what you get with this plugin is, if you go to the presets, you've got a couple different things. You've got presets by instruments, bass, drums, guitar, whatever. But you also have the comps themselves, the compressors themselves. And so you've got a Fairchild emulation. You've got an LA2A in compressor mode or limiter mode, which is cool. You've got a Varimove from Manley. You've got an 1176. You've got really, really hard British compression. You've got tube compression. You've got a DBX style compressor. You have limiters. These are modeling different things. So if I changed it, to the Fairchild, then the interface changes, right, to what the Fairchild would give you. If I change it to 1176, it changes to that. It gives me the attack and release settings that I'm expecting. So it gives me their own versions of those popular compressors. If you don't know what those compressors sound like, then here's a great opportunity to throw it on your vocal, throw it on your kick drum, and then switch to different compressors, all with one plugin, and dial in some different knobs, even if you don't know what you're doing, and hear how they affect your signal differently. Hear how a slower optical compressor gently squeezes something versus a very fast solid state compressor that clamps down on transients. And you can get some great, great sounds with this. This compressor alone could be all you need. And that's kind of was their idea back in the day when they first came out with Compressor Bank over 10 years ago. So you get a version of Compressor Bank, which I think it gives you the best version of the actual full version of Compressor Bank. You get all the features you would need. So again, Analogue Channel LE and then Compressor Bank, you're getting ridiculous sonic tools for so cheap. So these two are the ones that I use the most, okay? You also get Filter Bank, which is an EQ. So you can pull that up here, and you get 3 versions of it. And so some have filters on the end, some are just notch, and it looks really old school. But you can dial in the slope, the Q exactly the way you want. It's a real musical, surgical EQ. And so if you don't have a good EQ or you want to experiment with the sound of a different EQ, I kind of think that Filter Bank is like your analog EQ equivalent in the box. And a lot of pro guys love Filter Bank. It was the first plugin they ever made. It's been around a long time. But most of us already have an EQ, so you may not need it, but it's good to know that it's there. I don't use it that often, but I have used it in a few mixes lately. What you're also going to get is a reverb. You're going to get Revolver. And Revolver is a convolution reverb, which it mimics certain actual spaces. So if you just have your stock reverb, here is a whole nother reverb with specific spaces you could use, rooms that they've modeled, and you have a ridiculous amount of actual spaces that have been modeled and put into a reverb that you can dial in. So you can get much more realistic reverb effects. So if you already have one reverb built in, here's another one to try. I've used that a lot too. Is pretty much a CPU hog, as most convolution reverbs are, but it is nice to throw one of those in there because they're pretty expensive on their own. And then finally, you get an awesome limiter, the ML4000. The full version of this gives you a multi-band compressor limiter, but this is the straight brick wall limiter part of the ML4000 full version, and it sounds great, and you couldn't have a simpler plugin. Set the ceiling, then pull down your threshold until it's squeezing it and getting the gain reduction you want. You can affect the knee and the release. So what this does is change the sound of the limiter, how hard it hits your signal, if it's more musical or more aggressive. And so you could use this in mastering, and you can throw this on your mix bus at the end if you're doing a quick reference and you want to get your mix a little bit hotter to listen to it in the car or send it to your client to reference, whatever. The ML4000 is legitimate. I've used this for many, many years. It's just as good as any of the other ones out there. So those are the 5 plugins. You get all 5 of those for $79. And like I said, the Analogue Channel alone or the Compressor Bank alone are awesome. Like here's the Compressor Bank. I'm using it as an LA2A on my vocal. Well, I had this setting. I'll have to go get it later. But I'm also using it on my drum bus, on my parallel compression drum bus. And I'm using one of the British models. And this is a preset for drum crushing. So it's right here. Right? It's just slamming. So I'm using on a parallel compression channel. It's the exact same plugin, but it's a totally different compressor. Just to give you an idea of the variety you can get with Compressor Bank alone. So I would say Analogue Channel, the AC2, and Compressor Bank are worth the price of admission alone, and the other ones are just ridiculous gravy on the top. What I really love, and I can't speak highly enough about Colin and his crew, is that he's a guy making plugins for people, and he really is a musician himself, and his videos are hilarious. He's got a great thing over here at Colin's Corner, where he highlights how to use their plugins. You know, tips and tricks for the Project Studio bundle that he has, right? What's the deal about some newer plugins? Why would he release a plugin called the Ultimate Compressor if he already has Compressor Bank? And he shows you his vision behind it. His videos are hilarious. He's totally a gear nut, but he wants to make great music, and their plugins sound great. They cover pretty much a wide variety of everything you need, and you can get the full versions of them. You could just demo them, pick up one or two if you're interested. Again, if you don't have Pro Tools and you can't do the Project Studio bundle, then I'd say demo something like Analogue Channel, or demo Compressor Bank, or demo his new retro EQ compressor limiter. See if you like the sound of it, and then pick one up and just use that one and get to know his plugins. There's a lot of big other competitors out there, guys like Waves, UAD. McDSP is right up there as a great place to get plugins. And now their audio units compatible, so you can use this in other DAWs, not just Pro Tools. So people had asked me for it, so there it is, the Project Studio bundle. For McDSP's plugins. Again, very usable. I'm using them all over my latest EP and on some clients' projects right now. I've had them for years, and I just dug them up. Who would have thought that a $79 bundle 7 years later is helping me make great mixes when I've bought plenty of other plugins since and could use almost anything on a track. I hope that helps give you some idea of what you can do with a Project Studio bundle. Again, this is Graham at therecordingrevolution.com. I hope more than anything, you just go make great music and you don't worry too much about the gear, but find a few tools, find ones that you like, experiment with them, and then get back to making great music. I'll see you on another video soon. Take care.